Well, it's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. If you probably know New Japan, we are now getting closer now towards the finish line for the G1 Climax 35. Now, as you probably know, three already candidates have been advancing in the G1 in the A block. But the real question we ask ourselves, who will be the three candidates from the B block? Well, that's going to be a very interesting thing. So we're going to go from A to Z, but we're going to focus on the B block match only. And then, of course, we have WWE Evolve, featuring, of course, a number one contendership of sorts, or should I say, Eliminator match, who will be facing Callie Armstrong for the WWE Women's Evolve Championship. So we will see who will come out on top. Will it be Carmen Petrovic or, of course, Tyra May Steele. So that's going to be a very interesting to see. And of course, as you probably know, the Vanity Project are still dealing with the fallout, knowing that Jackson Drake should be concerned, knowing Kiana Carver is coming, but Bryce Donovan could be the one causing the problem. So we'll see how things will progress throughout the entire event. And then finally, of course, we have AEW Dynamite. We're getting closer now to Forbidden Door. We will find out who will be, in fact, answering the call by Kyle Fletcher for Forbidden Door. And of course, a face-to-face confrontation between Hangman Page and MJF. And of course, we have Moxley versus Kevin Knight and plenty other matches as well. And as always, we'll cap out our episode, as usual, with some news updates to give you guys updates on what's been happening in the world of pro wrestling, such as what events the promotions are throwing out, who's booked, what matches are set, including developments that are happening in the world of pro wrestling as we speak. So, let's get ready for another episode of the Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everyone, welcome to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, but also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK. Anywhere in the world pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also, of course, do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also, of course, do more news updates. If certain information was unable to be on this episode, we can either put it on the next one or on a separate video by itself. We also, of course, do real-time news updates to keep you guys on alert if something has happened in the world of wrestling that needs to be addressed ASAP. We also, of course, got the Unagi Sayaka Watch and various other cool wrestling content as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us. Click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool wrestling content as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, enough with the jibber jabbers. Let's call this meeting to order. So, let's begin with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Okay, Day 16, New Japan Pro Wrestling, G1 Climax. Now, we are going to focus on the B block. Now, to recap on a certain topic here regarding the G1. If you probably know, the last review we did with New Japan, it's already been decided the three candidates are now advancing in the G1. Now, this is a single elimination part of the tournament. Now, who is participating in that? Coming from the A block, we have, of course, the one person I hate the most, Evil, Yoda Tsuji, and I believe David Finlay. So these guys are representing the A block. But the real question is, who will be joining who's coming from the B block. Well, let's get to it. But first things first, as you all know, we were initially supposed to have Gabe Kidd to take on El Phantasmo, but due to the situation with Gabe Kidd being injured, this match was forfeited, and El Phantasmo won by default with a total of 8 points. But however, El Phantasmo is out of the G1, so basically that has already been announced the previous time. Now, our first match, we have Drilla Maloney versus Shingo Takagi. Now, of course, it's not the first time these two have tangled with each other. They actually had through a very interesting match last time, but however, it was Drilla Maloney who walked away with the victory, and just like that, of course, we thought it would be the same thing. However, Shingo was able to apply the last of the dragon, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, he gained 2 points with a total of 10. So basically he's in, but Drilla Maloney is out. But it was a pretty good match, not gonna lie about that. Our next match, we have Yoshihashi taking on Zack Sabre Jr. Now, for those who may not know, Zack Sabre Jr. has already automatic being in this advances due to the fact that he had 12 points. But however, how would this affect him if he loses against Yoshihashi? I have to say, Yoshihashi knows that he is not facing a slouch. He knows that Zack Sabre Jr. is a very good technical wrestler. He knows that he can put you in a submission. That's exactly what he would have done the entire time. But however, Yoshihashi ended up in the submission himself and had no choice but to tap out, giving Zack Sabre Jr. with the totals of 14 points. So that means he, of course, now is in the last stages of the G1. Now, our next match, we have the Great-O-Khan versus Shota Umino. Now, it's no secret these two have faced off each other. If you all remember, Great-O-Khan criticized Shota Umino because of his interaction with kids, thinking that, he's not going to be the ace, he's not going to prevent him. But however, I'm sure Shota Umino is looking for another opportunity for another revenge against him, not to prevent him from actually costing him the last time. But this time, of course, Shota Umino went full ahead, and then he defeated him by applying the second chapter, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Shota Umino made it through with the total points of 12. Now, our main event, we have Ren Narita versus Konosuke Takeshi. Now, of course, as you all know, Ren Narita being a member of the House of Losers, they intend to make sure that they go into the finals to get what they want, the IWGP World Title. And that's exactly what they try to do. Evil already done that. But Ren Narita had the help from, of course, F and Dick and that idiot Fale, of course, the help, and they attacked Takeshita and Rocky Romero before the belt stuck. But however, things may not have gone well for Ren Narita. He would do whatever it takes to win. He did enlist the assistance of that moron Kanemaru. Well, oops. Kanemaru tried to spit mist whiskey onto Kadeska, but oops, he got, of course, Ren Narita, and just like that, of course, Takeshita put Ren Narita in a chokehold, and just like that, it was over, right, by ref's decision. Now, here's the interesting part. As I mentioned before, Ren Narita is out, so that means who will join in? Well, this has been announced. Zack Sabre Jr. automatically in, but the two who will be joining him is Shota Umino and Konosuke Takeshita. Now, this is what I learned so far. So the next, of course, New Japan event we probably will cover is, of course, New Japan. This is what we do know. On the 14th of August, which is going to be the next one we're going to be doing, we have Shota Umino versus Yota Tsuji. Now, whoever walks out of this match will meet Evil on August 16th. And this is the one crucial part. I don't want Evil to win. Now, as for the other bracket, Zack Sabre Jr. has a bye. But on the 14th of August, it's going to be David Finlay versus Konosuke Takeshita. Now, whoever walks out of this match will meet Zack Sabre Jr. on the 18th. And from there on, we'll see. So, this is going to be a bit of a crucial part of the entire tournament. So, buckle up. So, I can't wait to review this one for all of you, and we'll go from there. But as of right now, let's move on with WWE Evolve. Okay, WWE Evolved. Now we opened up with singles action. We have Tate Wilder versus Brooks Jensen. Of course, we saw them got in each other's faces. And of course, we wouldn't expect a whole lot. Now, of course, Brooks Jensen was the one who was going to pick up the win. It took him only 2 Southern Lariats to put out Tate Wilder. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. However, Brooks Jensen was attacked by Jordan Oasis. As you know, I did not see this match. Jordan Oasis left them stranded while he was dealing with the Vanity Project, which is the last thing he wanted. So, as you know, the fight continues between those two. Now, Wendy Chu is continued to, of course, to taunt her victims. I don't know what's next to her because she is very, very crazy, and we know what she's planning to do. Now, we did see, of course, Jack Cartwheel and Cappuccino Jones training until they were interrupted by a couple of guys named Jax Priestley and Harley Riggins. Now, I don't know who these 2 guys are, but I'm pretty sure we will see them tangle with each other sooner or later. Now, the Vanity Project were not happy with the result of what happened. They questioned Bryce Donovan losing to Keanu Carver. As you know, Jackson Drake, the last thing he needs is knowing that Keanu Carver is coming for him. And of course, Bryce Donovan is being looked at as, of course, the one who is causing the problem. However, we ask ourselves this question: are they beginning to have cracks within the Vanity Project? If there is the possibility they can cut loose Bryce Donovan, knowing that he is a liability. So we'll see what happens down the road with these guys. Now, our next match, we have Dante Chen versus Edris Enofe. As you know, Edris Enofe got in the face of Dante Chen, who made his debut not too long ago, considered him as a threat taking his spot. But Dante Chen was not going to take this kindly coming from him, knowing too well that he is trying to evolve and grow from his status. But of course, Edris Enofe didn't see that, and now Dante Chen gets another opportunity. Now, he tried to use, of course, the gentle touch once, but it failed. But like the old saying goes, sometimes the second try is a charm, and it worked. So he applied the gentle touch, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Now, Tate Wilder, as you know, he is still dealing with the 2 losses he had. However, Rich Holland is seeing him that you just lost 2 matches. That makes you as the biggest loser. But of course, Tate didn't see it that way. He says, look, I may have lost 2 matches, but at least I'll grow out of it. But Rich Holland's like saying, you're a loser, bro. That's what you are. But Tate refuses to accept that. But we'll see what happens between those 2. Now, Stevie Turner had a nice conversation with Kylie Ray. As you know, Kylie Ray went through a whole ordeal with Wendy, and now she had to deal with Chantel Monroe. But, of course, she will deal with her soon enough because she feels, even though Wendy Chu has caused her many problems, she has to deal with, of course, with Chantel Monroe, so she's willing to accept it. And, of course, Jordan Oasis had to talk to Stevie Turner, trying to get even with Brooks Jensen. Of course, we will see those 2 tango soon enough. Now, our next match, we have Layla Diggs versus Zeta Steele. Of course, Bryce Donovan's in tow with Zeta. But, of course, we ask ourselves, I did mention, are there cracks beginning to form by Bryce Donovan? Now, Bryce Donovan tried to interfere in this match, causing, of course, a distraction. But the referee, unfortunately, told him he has now been ejected. And, of course, this led for Zeta Steele to lose this match by Layla Diggs when she applied the Divinity Splits, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it's over. Now, as I mentioned, when it comes to the Vanity Project, they may have to cut loose Bryce Donovan for his, insolence that he caused. So we'll see how that will progress from there. Now, Jamar Hampton had enough with Ed Scal in getting involved in his matches, but Ed Scal continues to act like, he thinks that, I don't know what you're talking about. But sooner or later, they will have to butt heads at one point. Now, Chuy Martinez had a nice, kind interview with Sean Legacy, talking about his recent loss to Keanu Carver, who's been now targeting the WWE ID prospect. But it appears that someone has called out Sean Legacy, and that is Ice Williams. So we'll see how things will grow from those 2. Now, our main event is for the WWE Evolve Women's title in the Eliminator match. We have Carmen Petrovic, who we've seen from NXT, take on Tara May Steele. So that practically we know how that was going to be. Now, of course, Petrovic does have a bit more experience than Tyra, So that kind of plays out. It took only, of course, the Petrifier by Carmen Petrovic in order to pick up the win. So that means she will be meeting up with Carly Armstrong sooner. So we'll see how things will progress from there. So it was a pretty good show, not gonna lie that. But however, let's move on to our last and final review, and that is, of course, AEW Dynamite. Okay, last review, AEW Dynamite. We opened up with a bit of a face-to-face confrontation between both MJF and Hangman. Now, of course, MJF, as you know, try to act like you know I'm better than you and you know it type of thing. But however, the one thing that was interesting is, of course, is Hangman about what he did. He told him something that was true. You see, the problem is this: we all know we got Forbidden Door coming up. But MJF, of course, is acting like he gets a title shot. But however, in Hangman's eyes and ears, he feels, you're not even calling your shot, MJF. You're holding on to that contract that you won, but you're not taking the shot. So he told him, you're afraid, Hangman. You're afraid because you don't have any backup. You're afraid because you have no insurance. And of course, that kind of forced MJF to take his shot at the Forbidden Door until, of course, MJF realized he got duped. So he got duped calling his shot, and I don't think he expected that. So it was later officially announced that it's gonna happen. Now, as you know, Jon Moxley has been dealing with Darby Allin. He refuses to, of course, accept the challenge at Forbidden Doors. So he had a bit, he's like, I'm not dealing with you, Darby. I'm not playing your game. So he decides to make his way to the ring to deal with Kevin Knight. Now, of course, when it comes to Jon Moxley, wherever he goes, Wheeler Yuta and, of course, Marina Shafir are close by. Just like, of course, Kevin Knight, what's his name? Speedball is there too as well to ensure. But however, this match ended in a very unique type of submission when Moxley applied an inverted triangle choke. And of course, he won in that fashion. But however, when the bell rung during the post-match, he refused to let go. Speedball tried his way to, did everything humanly possible to help him. But however, it did not do any well for him because he was attacked by Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir. But however, here comes Darby Allin with a skateboard on one hand and, of course, a body bag. And then he tried to put Wheeler Yuta in the body bag until Claudio Castagnoli showed up out of nowhere, and then they put him in the body bag. And of course, they tried to dismantle him in every way possible. And then out of nowhere, of course, much what we saw with Claudio taking out all the threat to the Death Rider as well, Will Ospreay showed up. And then, of course, Will Ospreay decided, since you refused to accept Darby's challenge, I got one better for you. How about a lights-out steel cage match? And of course, at the Forbidden Door. So it's going to be him and Darby versus Jon Moxley and his friends. So that kind of went out of hand. And of course, I think Jon Moxley didn't anticipate this whatsoever. Now, our next match, we have Mercedes Moné teaming up with the members of the Triangle of Madness, Sky Blue and Tekla. They take on the combined forces of Alex Windsor, Queen Aminata, and Willow Nightingale. Now, as you all know, Alex Windsor will be in a match against Mercedes Moné for, of course, the TBS title at Forbidden Door. However, as you know, the Triangle of Madness, they've been at war with Queen Aminata, Willow Nightingale, and their friends. So you probably can guess that happened. But however, Toni Storm and Athena made their presence known because, of course, they have they are watching this match very, very closely. But of course, in the end, it was Alex Windsor who picked up the win on Sky Blue with the sharpshooter, and just like that, she tapped out. But in the post-match, we saw a beatdown. Of course, Triangle of Madness attacked both Queen Aminata and Willow Nightingale, while of course Mercedes had to deal with, of course, with Alex Windsor, and then Toni Storm came to the save, and so is Athena, but it did not work well for Athena and Mercedes Moné. But however, before Forbidden Door, it was announced that Alex Windsor and Toni Storm will team up to deal with Athena and Mercedes Moné. So this is going to be a very interesting tag team match at, of course, in Scotland. Now, Renee Paquette talked to Will Ospreay about, of course, what he just did, announcing this match. He said that he went to Tony Khan's office, and of course, he kind of went behind his back, but he told him, hey, listen, it's forbidden door. How about if I open the door? So he did state it that it's going to be him and Will Ospreay and a couple of guys that has not been confirmed just yet. And of course, he called someone, and he said the person who's joining him is Tanahashi. So this was huge news. But Renee Paquette asked him about his injury he obtained. So we don't know what's going to happen from there, but we'll see. Now, our next match, we have Cope versus Stokely. Now, of course, Stokely being the little scary little girl that he is, he decided not to show up until the security dragged him out. And of course, what's funny, Stokely tried to spear him, and then of course we did see a bitch slap by Cope to Stokely. But what's funny, Cope tells the guys, like, saying, okay, let's do a poll here. He turns to this guy, what do you think of Stokely? He tells him he's short, he's bald, he gets no hose. You know, and I think that was the most funniest thing ever. However, FTR showed up, but they know they cannot get involved in this match. So Cope decided, I'm going to play. How about this? You want me to pin him? Oh, hell no. You know, so he try to take care of Stokely, but of course FTR violated the restraining order, so now it's in void. But of course Stokely had a way, used powder into the eyes of Cope, disqualifying himself in this match. And then they tried to take him out until, of course, Christian Cage showed up and make the save. And then, of course, the Patriarchy showed up too, attacking Christian. And then Cope saved them. So basically, we saw a united front between both these two friends. Christian Cage and Cope reunite once again. But the real question is, where do we go from here? Well, we will see what happens from there. Now, there was an interesting vignette from Sendin Hook. So it's still unclear when he'll be back. So we know we've seen him recently, but he is working hard to get back where he started. Now, our next match, we have the Young Bucks. They team up with Josh Alexander and Kyle Fletcher, taking on Tomohiro Ishii, Hologram, and Brody King. But the real question is, who's going to answer the call for the Kyle Fletcher announce? Well, the person who answered it was the Time Bomb, Hiromu Takahashi. Kyle Fletcher had that look on his face like, I can't even believe it. Like, you got to be kidding me. Now, it's no secret that the Hiromu Takahashi has dealt with heavyweight competitors in his past. I mean, we know he's done it. I mean, he hasn't, I don't know if he transitioned yet, but yeah, he's done it, and I thought it was pretty cool. And of course, we saw there was going to be some great cohesions with, of course, the Bucks and the members of the Don Callis family. But in the end, it was Hiromu who was able to pick up the win when he applied the Time Bomb Q onto Josh Alexander. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Now, Swerve Strickland was doing an interview with, of course, with Renee Paquette, talking about an injury until Okada decided to get in his face, and all hell broke loose. So you know how that turns out. Now, in the back, Alicia Atout had the decency to inform Jon Moxley that there's going to be the lights out steel cage match between Jon Moxley and several of his friends, taking on Darby Allin, Will Ospreay, and some friends, along with Tanahashi. Now, when they mentioned Tanahashi, Jon Moxley's like, Tanahashi, you're telling me they got Tanahashi? Yes. Tanahashi. Yes. So he's like in disbelief, like, I can't believe it. So basically, he was not happy, but he went to the room where it says extras room, basically like the jobbers. And that's when he saw, of course, the Bucks, and Marina tells the other guys, leave. So we don't know what's going to happen, but we will reveal a little bit about that. That's going to be part of our news updates. Now, I believe our main event is, of course, the Ops versus the LFI. We know that we haven't seen Samoa Joe for a while now, but he's back. We know he's a bit banged up, but he's a tough SOB. We all seen how he is all the time. But he's facing a team that, as you know, they are a group of thugs in every way possible. But in the end, it was, of course, the Keto Clutch by Samoa Joe to Dralistico. And just like that, it was over. So that's how it ends. Now, the show ended with, of course, Paquette talking to Hangman about what happened. Of course, the match being official until MJF attacked him from behind and beat him up. So you probably can guess war is coming between those two. So this is going to be interesting. So we'll see what happens down the road when we get to Forbidden Door. But as of right now, we are officially done with all the reviews. Let's move on to news updates. Okay, so welcome to our news update. So let's begin with upcoming events. Now, as you know, the Forbidden Door has given out, of course, the card for that particular day. So let me pull it out for all of you so you can know what exactly is happening. Here we go. Now, as you know, we have the Lights Out Steel Cage match. It was later announced it's going to be Jon Moxley, Gabe Kidd, and Claudio Castagnoli teaming up with the Bucks. They take on Darby Allin, Will Ospreay, and Tanahashi. Joining them is Kenny Omega and, of course, Kota Ibushi, which is going to be on fire. And then, of course, we have MJF and Hangman for the world title. Swerve Strickland versus Kazuchika Okada for the AEW Unified Championship. Kyle Fletcher versus Hiromu Takahashi for the TNT Championship. Toni Storm versus Athena versus the AEW Women's Championship. And then there's going to be a four-way match for the TBS Championship. We have, of course, Mercedes Moné versus Alex Windsor. And then there's a representative from CMLL and Stardom. So we'll find out who will represent those two. Then, of course, it was announced Christian Cage and Copeland will be teaming up for the first time in years. They take on Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian. Then the Hurt Syndicate will defend their championship, whoever comes out between FTR and Brodito. So that's going to be interesting. And then finally, as you know, Zack Sabre Jr. will put out the IWGP World Heavyweight title on the line between whoever comes out between Nigel McGuinness, Lee Moriarty, Hichi Seto, and Daniel Garcia. So that match will be coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. Now, what Wrestling Revolver has announced for the Clean Slate event that will take place on the 6th of September. The Revolver Remix Championship, AJ Francis will defend his belt against Chris Danger. The MLW, they have announced for the Fightland event taking place on the 13th of September. The MLW World Middleweight Championship that's been vacant, currently in being held hostage by Kuro Kwan. Well, it's going to be now we will crown a new champion. Will it be between Templario or Ecuador Crown? Well, we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, Fantastica Mania, the collaboration between CML and RevPro. They announced Máscara Dorada will be participating. This is going to be on the 18th of October. And then finally, a new show alert by West Coast Pro. They announced how the West was won, and it's going to happen on the 1st of November. But that's pretty much what for upcoming events, and we only have one development here that we're going to announce. Kota Ibushi has signed a 2-year extended contract with AEW. So basically, he will be wrestling with them for another 2 years. So this is awesome news. We haven't seen him that much, but we know he's been recovering from injuries he obtained recently. But we'll see more of him. As you know, I mentioned he'll be participating in the Lights Out Steel Cage match. So I think that's pretty much it for now. So let's just call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, as you know, we have more with New Japan Pro Wrestling. We're going to see what happens in the last stages of the G1 Climax. As you know, I mentioned the 6 participants and 3 from the A block, 3 from the B block. So we will see what happens. So there will be one match involving that, and then we'll go from there. And then, of course, we have Ring of Honor and TNA. So we'll see how things will progress from there. But as of right now, we'll leave things as it is and we'll move forward. But until then, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. And have a nice day.